Awesome. Hey guys, thank you so much. Another edition of the Appsmith office hours. So today what we have planned essentially is we'll have a little bit of discussion with the community. I think Magnus Hetu was mentioning that you have built a tree selector of sorts with the table widget. So we would like to see that first. And after that, Nidhi essentially will walk us through a few of our newer features that we've released and some things in the pipeline. We'll be talking a little bit about OAuth 2 that we've implemented, the Google Sheets connector that's coming up, the switch widget, and a couple of other things that Nidhi will walk us through. So Magnus, if you can share your screen, we can begin.
Yep, just one moment. Let's see, that was the wrong screen, I think. Oh, yeah, that's the right one. Yes, I just made a quick little navigation tool to navigate down through a hierarchy. So I suspect there's some fun stuff happening with the state when I do this. But it works.
When you do nav up?
When let's see, if I go a few steps in, if I navigate up one step, it goes one step up. And if I click home, it goes all the way back to the root of the tree.
And all of this is connected via S3 or?
No, all of this is using one single fetch from a Postgres endpoint. And then I use the state and some fun rules to orchestrate everything inside Appsmith.
Guys, Magnus also saying that since we didn't have a disable button, what he's done, if you could hover over there, I just saw a hint of what you did over there. If you hover on one of those lower rows.
Yeah, I had to.
It's technically a button, but he changed the background color to get it to work as a disable. He could not disable a button, so that's how he did that thing.
That's actually clever. I wouldn't have thought of that.
So here's the basic rule. It filters the data set by the last property of the node list, of the navigation list. Nav up pops the last one off and restores it. Home sets it back to an array containing only 0. And when you navigate into an item, it appends the item to the end of the array. Rather simple implementation, but it works.
Sorry, Magnus, can you show us what the nav up button on click action, the nav up? The nav up wasn't working for you, right?
No, I got it working with a bit of hacking. So pop and store, and also store the name for every action as well.
Got it.
To create the breadcrumbs.
That's really cool, man.
So this works. It would be a lot more elegant if I could move the buttons inside this frame somehow.
Got it.
But it works decently. Nice for one evening's hacking.
So did you have to create this for your own internal probably as well?
Project.
Sorry?
I created this for my little evening project. So I recreated this in about half an hour before this meeting.
Oh, that's very cool.
Impressive, man.
So it works. And it shows quite a bit of flexibility in the framework.
Certainly. In your navigate, so essentially your whole state is inside the store, and that's how you maintain.
Yeah,
everything.
I have the whole tree inside the store, and I filter the tree every time I navigate.
And you are still calling that Postgres query, looking at that state.
Hopefully I'm not, but I'm not that familiar with the reactive patterns.
Oh, so you're not actually like, if you are not, then it will not call it. So if you're not calling query1.run, API1.run over here, then
Okay,
it will not
yeah.
call it.
Yeah, then it shouldn't be running.
Oh, so then your whole state is then inside the store only, then all the
Yeah.
all the nodes over here.
Yeah, the whole state is stored inside here. So I don't have any run calls.
Interesting.
So,
Any blockers throughout the process, like something like the one is definitely the whole disable button thing. Anything else which you thought could have been better?
well, nothing major at the moment. I had some issues with a race condition between the properties of some of the buttons when I tried to push a property to the array and then consume the last member of the array in a new run, where it would run with the previous value before it was ready to, well, populate the array with the last value.
Is this because the store value function is asynchronous? Is that why you?
It seems like it.
Yeah.
So when I was using a separate integer property, it worked most of the time.
This is actually one of the things which had come up in some other scenario too. We are planning to actually make the store function synchronous to avoid such issues, because a lot of people store their state over there and they might want to mutate and do some other functions looking at that state. So
Yeah.
we've been actually planning to make it synchronous as well. Thanks for showing us
Yeah,
that.
congratulations on the awesome project.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Well, I have to go now, but I'll catch up on the video afterwards.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for making it.
Magnus.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Bye.
You and your daughter. Good night.
So we have Andrew also on the call. He's just joined us. Hey, Andrew, how are you? Andrew, can you hear us?
Seems like his audio is not connected. Okay.
Yeah, you. Okay. Also, okay, yeah, he's just texting us. Okay, cool. So Andrew, if you can just text your question to us on chat, I'll speak it out, and Nidhi or one of us can help you out.
I think I got it. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, you can. Perfect.
Hey. Yeah, so I'm just getting started with it. It seems pretty cool that I was trying out a retool before, and this is obviously similar in all the ways that we need it. So it's pretty cool open source project. We were excited about the Google Drive integration that I just saw came out yesterday, or the way to use an API to connect to Google APIs, right? Like, so we could theoretically set up an action to create a Google Sheet with the result of a table. Is that correct?
Yes, you should be able to do that now. So what we have right now is an OAuth 2 integration. So now you'll authenticate automatically, but in a week or two, we'll have a complete Google Sheets integration. So Nidhi will be walking us through that in a bit.
That's very cool.
Okay.
What we were eventually hoping to do was to actually run that on almost like a cron. So okay. I don't know if so theoretically, I think we should just be able to send a post request that triggers the action that then creates a Google Sheet. Am I right? Or is that in the realm of what's possible?
Yes. Nidhi, do you want to take that?
So if I understand this right, you basically want to be triggering the creation of the Google Sheet from inside of Appsmith, right?
Correct. And then we would actually like to trigger that from a cron. So it's almost like for a reporting tool where we want a daily report to go into Google Sheets. And Appsmith is really good at connecting our different data sources to let us build a table view of it. But then it would be really cool if we could just kind of export that table view kind of as a headless operation. I know usually Appsmith is user interface driven with, in the browser, but I think that all of the actions can actually run separate from the browser. Is that right? Or do the actions use the browser's context in order to generate the tables?
They
Does that make
do.
sense?
The actions use the local storage in the browser as well. But if this is a cron job that you want to be running, you can also configure that inside of Appsmith. And that way, correct me if I'm wrong, Arpit, but I think this should be possible, right? To be able to trigger APIs that can then create the sheet for you.
So the specific use case that you're looking for, unfortunately, you can't trigger a cron to do that. What you can do though, I mean, like the cron that Nidhi is talking about, what you can do is you can trigger, like hit a post execute API and trigger an action. But in your case, because you want to join data or you want to use the data from API 1, and then feed it into API 2. So that you can technically.
Well, if it was a simple query, would it then function as in? So
Yeah.
I guess which parts is the browser
Yeah.
required for?
So the browser is like when you're joining data across two APIs or two queries
With the curly brackets.
Yeah. So if you have any JavaScript transformation in the middle and you're transforming data from format 1 to format 2, if you're doing all of that, that is all run on your browser. Like it uses Chrome's whatever JavaScript engine to do that. But if you have like just a data query, like hitting a DB query or hitting an API, and you just want the results back, that you could like technically just do. Over the next few weeks, we are launching a way for you to be. I wouldn't say a few weeks, sorry. Within the next few months, we are launching a way for you to be able to write these workflows as JavaScript functions, which you can then basically just invoke as a serverless API, like how you are envisioning it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Is
that in a Node.js context in the server, or what? Because the server's written in Java, right?
Yeah.
Kotlin.
So there is this project where so that's the part that we're still designing. So right now we are on the fence. So there's this compiler called GraalVM, which allows us to run JavaScript, Ruby, Python inside the JVM itself. The other option that we are kind of debating with is running a separate container talking to a Java server, and that container is a Node.js server. So you could like just execute arbitrary JavaScript on that Node.js container as well.
And that would make it server side and not dependent on the browser.
Yeah, exactly. So you could write any JavaScript function. It would be exactly what you would use an AWS Lambda or a serverless for. You just write your transformation here and then just, yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll definitely be looking out for that. The only other one, and I was almost thinking about doing a pull request for it, was to put in the aggregate function for Mongo to allow it. It would just like I saw it to do in your actual source code of like pull the other response variables from the Mongo response to let us do like count and MapReduce and all sorts of other Mongo queries on those data sources. Shouldn't be too hard. I don't know if you want me to submit a PR for that, or if you have someone who does the Mongo stuff. And
you can already do aggregates and counts. Okay, maybe we've not removed the to do. Wait 1 second. Let me try to look this up. I have.
It didn't return anything.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah, maybe I was doing it wrong though. I don't know.
Let me try to, because I do remember answering somebody on GitHub about aggregate queries, but let me try it out. It's possible that it's not supported. I'll need to check this. Sorry.
Okay.
Answer off the bat.
Well, I'm in the Discord, so I'll shoot a message there to remind you, and then we can look at it.
Absolutely. Sorry, what's your username on Discord? Are you?
It's just AM.
Oh, okay, you're AM. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Cool. Okay.
And are you guys all the Appsmith team? Is that the ones up top?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah. Everybody is a maintainer.
Awesome. Well, thanks. It's good to meet y'all. Well, I'll definitely be interested in watching and maybe participating as well too in some code. So
Yeah, that'll be great.
all right, appreciate the help. Bye.
Is there anyone else? Okay, no.
All right, cool. I'll share my screen then. Cool. So what we're going to be looking at today is just the authorization code flow for OAuth 2. What we've introduced in the REST API is a way to be doing both these grant types as authorization code as well as client credentials. But for the Google integrations, what we'd be usually using is the authorization code. The way to use this is to start using the authentication type in data sources while you connect to your REST API and select OAuth 2. From there, you'd be setting up the authentication details. I think we will be having a how-to guide for all these specific values for Google specifically. But these values are basically authentication details that go along with the authorization code flow. Once we get this page configured, it is basically an authorization step that involves connecting to your own Google account and authenticating the connection that you need to make. Sorry, that's a demo app that I'm using. Right, so it says save and reauthorize over here from the start because I'd already authorized my data source, but if it weren't authorized already, it would usually say save and authorize. I don't need to save it again. And then I can just directly go to the API that is using that data source and make the request. Right. That's about it. Cool. So,
So on the REST, the data source itself, is there a way for us to see, what the token that got generated was?
no, we don't send the token back to the client. It's stored as an encrypted field in the server.
Understood. Is it possible for us to, in some way, I don't know, indicate where? So just the button that says save and reauthorize, that's the way to indicate whether the token has been previously generated or not generated before?
That's correct. So when the authorization takes place, you'd get a success toast over here if it was successful, or the error message respectively. But other than that, if you have a save and reauthorize, that's the way to know whether you've already authorized it or not. We can probably add checkbox or something against OAuth 2 here.
Okay. Yeah, because then that will make it easy for other people coming in and looking at this data source to see whether they can. I mean, has this already been authorized? If yes, is there a token somewhere? So it'll be easy for them to.
Actually, we could do that for all data sources.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
at any point the connect has not been successful, we show a warning sort of sign, and if the credentials are correct, we show a check or something.
Yeah.
That's something that can come up with a debugger also, right? I mean, do you envision showing that in the data source page or on the entity explorer?
Oh, no, just on the data source page itself, like for example, client secret can be populated with, star, 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 or we have a token field that just says star, 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 star. It's a very clear indicator that, there is something here that we are obviously hiding.
Got it. Yeah.
I have a question about this long form. Like, how do we make it short?
We can't make it any shorter in this. Are you talking about the UI for it?
No, I'm just saying like it's a lot to read. Uh, yeah. Do people understand this? Like, do they actually understand every single thing that's written here?
Yeah.
This is basically a replication of what Postman also looks like, which is probably the most popular tool developers would use to connect to APIs.
Okay.
So one small feedback that I would give is to reorganize the order in which these fields are defined. For example, access token URL and authorization URL, like they're very far from each other, but they're typically, defined together.
That's true.
They come very close to each other. So for example, header prefix is at the top bearer. Uh,
So that's been kept with this drop down with add access token too, so that it will generally disappear if you choose request URL.
oh, okay, understood. Okay, sorry. Okay. And then what's the last bit? Client authentication send as basic auth header. What are the other options?
That's body.
But aren't we already defining that adding the access token to the header?
Those are two different. So this bearer is the header prefix that is used for the final access token that is sent to the API that you want to get your resource from.
Hmm.
These client authentication credentials is used in the request where you send your credentials to get the token. The first half of the OAuth 2 runs.
Then maybe one of the things that we could maybe I don't know, like enhance this form as well is add support for like tooltips, so that people know what this stuff is for. They can hover over it and be like, hey, what is this for?
We
So
should probably also improve the language in general. I don't think client authentication describes what it means.
improving the title, I think, and like,
Yeah.
and I think just reordering the fields and to your point, Abhishek, the number of fields will reduce as we do like more specific integrations with Google Sheets or GitHub or Trello. In those scenarios, then this will like drastically cut down and be reduced to maybe just scope. Like scope is the only thing that you would probably see, and then the
It's
connector.
also go away, right? Because it's now we know it's Google
No.
Sheets.
So, for example, if you only want read only, that's a different scope. You want read write access, then that's a different scope. For GitHub, you might want to create a token that does not list the repositories, but gives you access to one repository. So depending on like what sort of things do you want to do.
That we can decide here, right? Like if somebody says read write, then we choose the scope. If they say read only, then we choose the
Correct.
scope.
So that form for OAuth 2, this entire form gets reduced to something that looks like this for Google Sheets.
Nice.
Now, this form will actually vary from integration to integration depending on what their server requires.
Yes. So, for example, in Google Sheets, it's fairly straightforward, read and read write. But for GitHub, it's a lot more. Like you want to read repositories, read commits, read releases. Uh, like there's like different scopes that you have to say yes to. So you might want to generate. So it may or may not fall into like a drop down. We'll try to make it a drop down, but in cases where maybe there are too many options, we'll just keep the field empty and say you type it out.
Okay. Can you go back there one? This client ID, how does one find that? What is client ID?
This one, it's generated in the Google Cloud console.
Okay. Got it. So I have to generate all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nidhi, if you could show your Google Auth, maybe we should also get a better idea.
So, hey, Mars has joined us. Hey, Mars, how are you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
It's my first time just to see how it works.
Okay.
Awesome.
So for some context, we're just discussing the Google OAuth that we released this week. And we're also talking a little bit more about the Google Sheets integration that's coming out.
Fine.
So if you have any questions, just feel free to stop us and ask. No problem.
Thank you.
So Abhishek, this is the client credential configuration page, and over here, when you create these set of credentials, you'll automatically be creating the ID and secret, right? And the one thing that you do need to add is this redirect URL. That's the change that we do need to make on the on this page. Nikhil had mentioned this earlier. We'll be showing a tooltip, or actually it's another field that's going to be disabled that shows automatically what the redirect URL should be, and that can be copied over from the form itself. It's added to the docs. This URL basically allows you to use your OAuth 2 with our server.
Got it. And when you tried to authorize it, it showed that this is not. What did it show? That this is not a.
Oh, the unsafe connection thing?
Unsafe connection thing. Yeah.
That's because my demo application on Google Cloud is a demo. It's not published or verified.
Okay, got it. So whoever needs to use this needs to verify this first.
Yeah, their application would probably generally be verified. It's just because I was using a demo app that I had this.
Okay.
That is Abhishek. So that is dependent on your client ID, client secret. So you have to submit your app to Google for verification. It takes like maybe 24 hours or so. Like if you are doing it for the first time. Yeah, right. That's Google side.
Okay. Cool. Got it. Thanks.
Cool. So the way that this shows up would be, I mean, once you use it as an API, it is just like any other API. So your body does not change. What that brings me to is a switch widget actually. Hold on. So the switch widget that we introduced is how I'm controlling my table here. There's actually just one single thing I'm using from the switch widget for this, and that's is disabled or is enabled. Is switched on. Yeah. Is switched on is the Boolean value that triggers the state from the switch. That's a new widget we've added. What else? There's the Postgres prepare statements that I want to talk about. Do you want to talk about that, Trisha?
Hey, Nidhi, can you just show us the Google Sheets one with the UI? Because I think you just showed us the API side of things, just how the UI changes as each API call.
Oh, yes. For this integration, right?
So for Mars, so we're just showing you how the Google Sheets integration will work going forward. Nidhi is just doing a small demo of with a random sheet she's just created.
Right, so I've given read and write over here, which means that I should be able to change values from my APIs as well. So we've got a short list of methods that we allow for now for spreadsheets, which has read write functions both. So just to show you my sheet that I'm going to be working on is this one over here. That's the one that was actually on display over here as well. And
are you able also to change the cell values from the Appsmith?
Yes. That's something that you can do if you give your read and write permissions while you're configuring the data source. If it's a read only, you cannot, I mean, it would return with an error.
So G-Sheets is a widget. It's the one.
It's a type of an API integration.
Okay, it's API. And what about the widget?
The widget that we were showing was the switch widget that we added in this release. So G-Sheets that I'm showing right now is actually not part of the current production. It's something that's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks. While the switch widget that I just showed was something that came out yesterday in production.
So Mars, the widget being used is the table widget, and we're also showing the switch widget along with the table widget.
Yes. So basically,
and,
integration is related, is just a new API, but the widget is the same table widget that is already available.
Correct.
Okay, and is this widget also? No, the widget is not editable. I mean, is you need to make a form.
Yes, yes.
I make a form based on the data of this widget, of this table. I can update the original Google Sheet as well using the API you showed before.
Correct, that's correct, yes.
Okay.
So right now you can connect to Google Sheets as of right now in production. You can connect, you can update data or connect to your Google Sheets and then update data using our OAuth, a generic OAuth configuration that Nidhi is showing, where you define. Nidhi, can you go to the data source?
Yep.
So you can define all your client ID, client secret. Basically you have to generate these credentials, and so you'll be able to connect to your Google account, and then you can just use our standard API connector to connect to Google Sheets API directly. But over the next couple of weeks, we are simplifying this process more and giving a more specific integration for Google Sheets itself. So where you don't have to do all of this bit, and you just literally, can you show the new UI? Maybe? Yeah, so can you go to the data sources? So within a couple of weeks, you can then just create a Google Sheets integration directly. And this is all that you need to then provide. So you don't have to fill out that entire form. That's the difference.
I think it's interesting. Sorry, I need to answer a phone call. I make a mute.
Sure.
Pronto? Ciao.
So about the data source experience, like we need a different place to access it easily, right? Like it being a click away in that API thing.
It's, yeah, this is probably where we introduce the integrations pane, because even over here, once I go into Google Sheets, over here is where I see my list of data sources available.
Yeah, I think something like integrations would something below APIs or DB queries would be better.
Yeah.
This we are sort of working on with Akash as well internally to make data sources more apparent. So what's going to happen? Can you open an API? Maybe? Any API? So what's? Oh no, sorry.
Oh, sorry. This is.
Yes. So in any of the APIs, now on the right hand side column, you will see a list of all the data sources that are available to you. So that it's like more front and center. That's one. And the other is when you create a new API, we'll make it more apparent that we list the data sources there as well, so that it's more apparent that hey, you can use these data sources.
Okay. So on the API page, which is like the plus button, there we will see all the available data sources, even the ones I have created.
Yes, it's exactly like the DB query experience. So when you do a plus on DB query, you can see the list of data sources that has been created, and maybe use one of them, else you can create a new one. So but in API, you will see pretty much at the top section, you'll see this plus curl, Google Sheets, Google Drive, Trello, whatever it is, and then any configured data sources as well. But this is something that we're sort of still like working through with Akash. Like, where will the placement, or like, what will that sort of feel like?
Right, got it. Cool. Cool. Okay. Yeah, this looks cool. So basically, like now we have this OAuth thing, we can just start generating direct integrations very quickly then.
Yep. Once we get Google Sheets out, that's basically going to be the template for every other integration.
Nice.
Yeah. So right now we're just working through the template via Google, with Google Sheets as an example. I think once we release Google Sheets, we are going to go through one round of sort of just refactoring, cleaning up the template, simplifying it. After that, it's a matter of data entry. Then it's just data entry.
Got it. Got it. Cool. Cool. I think like, yeah, then we should start getting more people to some external consultants to work on this.
Awesome. So, guys, do you want to go over prepared statements?
Sure, I can do a quick, I can share my screen if you would like me to, or you can also continue. It's fine. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea of prepared statements is basically to protect yourself from SQL injection. So I've given a very simple query here, which is basically select star from users where there is a status that I'm expecting, and post that I'm asking that I should only be returned 10 users. That's my expectation. By default, right now, because prepared statement is turned off, is in beta, so it will be turned off. When I run it, my input box, if this was my status, my evaluated query will be status as, I'll just run this. And as you can see, I got 10 users whose status is pending. What I could do is try to do SQL injection in this, which is basically try to end the query here. Since this is my DB, I'm not going to try to do drop database and stuff like that. But what I'm basically going to see is I'm going to try and end the query at this point and not have the last of the query execute, which will be limit 10. So now when I actually run it, it's taking a lot of time because it fetched. Now, as you can see, it actually fetched all the users whose status is pending. This is basically SQL injection that just happened. With prepared statements, this actually stops. So I'm just going to turn on prepared statements. I'm going to run this query again. As you can see, no data was returned because this was not a safe thing. So the database basically rejected and there are no data records to be displayed. A very simple example of protecting yourself from SQL injection. Yeah.
Well, it's not because the database refused. It's just because there is no status with that value, right?
No, actually, so the way prepared statement works is the value, the parameter that you're trying to send, it actually checks for the safeness. So right here, my parameter actually contains, this is unsafe op. And this is where it evaluated that this is not a safe parameter and it did not execute. It did not set this value, and that's why you did not return any responses.
I think what Mars is saying is actually correct, wherein because the prepared statements is going to sanitize that query.
Right.
Yeah, but prepared statement is a specific logic. sanitification, sorry, is another solution. There are two different solutions. I think prepare statements should work. That even if I put a quote or I put a double dash, this should be passed as a parameter and should be safe, because prepared statement doesn't. You cannot do SQL injection with prepared statement. Because
right, you're right. Yeah, what has happened is that the semicolon and all the special characters have been escaped, and hence what it's looking for is actually exactly that string. It's no longer
no. It's not what I'm saying. If you go in the database, I don't know if you can try this live. If you copy this value,
yeah.
if you copy this value in for one user, I should get this record.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's
correct.
the way prepare statement works.
Correct.
If you are changing the value and you're judging that it's not safe and you are removing the status value, that's not the expected behavior, in my opinion.
Right. So that's what I intended to say, that this was not a simple string replacement. This has actually been sanitized in the sense that this has been converted as a string and then sent to the DB for execution. So it would actually look for exactly this string, and it would not be raw SQL query ending here and the rest of the SQL query getting commented because of these two dashes.
Okay. So it's not going to remove the value, but it's just escaping what needs to be escaped, right?
Right.
Okay. So if I go in the database and I replace one of the statuses with that value, pending quote dash dash,
yeah,
I would get the output, right? The query results would be that user.
Yes, you should.
Yes, you should.
Okay.
Yeah. The other, Trisha, do you want to show how prepared statements also handles codes and makes that easier to write queries?
Right. What another thing that happens is, if this was my SQL query where I did not put quotes around the string input that I was expecting. If I didn't use prepared statements, when I run this is actually going to tell me that this is an incorrect SQL. Like I did not use quotes. I did not surround it with quotes. With prepared statements, we're actually doing a little bit of sanitization, in the sense we want to handle some of the user input errors. Even if you've forgotten to add quotes, we are going to do that on our side, and basically let it run through. So I'm gonna actually run a proper query. So my input1.text is now pending. So when I actually run this, it's going to handle this. So we have added a little bit of handling of user errors.
May I put JavaScript code inside the brackets?
Absolutely. So I could also do.
Okay.
So what I just did was did a JavaScript code which surrounds my input1.text with percentage, and this should run. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
On Appsmith platform, anywhere where there are mustaches, you can write JavaScript code inside it.
Okay. Yes, I think this is absolutely necessary, because it was I think it's very dangerous to go in production with all these queries made by concatenation, string concatenation. And how many databases are supported as of now?
So we are coming out with a beta for Postgres, And we're soon going to do this for the other SQL databases, MySQL, MS SQL as well. Yeah.
Okay, very good.
But obviously, prepared statements is only for SQL databases, not for Mongo or DynamoDB, or they don't have the concept of prepared statements.
Yeah, pretty exciting, Tisha. So I think one more thing we have now is how to connect to a MongoDB instance without user credentials. I think that was something that was asked on our Discord a couple of times. So that's one more thing Nidhi will be showing us today.
Actually, I don't have a MongoDB to connect to without credentials. Let's see. I mean, okay, let's see.
Yeah, we believe in security and we have credentials.
I mean, the only difference that we have introduced with this change is that if you do have a Mongo database that does not require credentials, you can leave your authentication fields blank, and that will just work that way. You don't, even if you don't have them filled out, it's not a required field. You can leave them blank and save it. It'll test out just okay.
Oh, can I have a username with no password?
Yes. It works both ways.
Cool. So yeah, I think I just wanted to show this because this is a community question. I think we've seen that multiple times asked on our Discord. So we had to sort of change that.
Yeah, I think we can wrap it up. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for attending. If you need anything, the Discord is always there. So feel free to pick us.